ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, what is most difficult to manage today, what is much daring for us to live with, is the issue of crude oil theft. It's real. It is happening. Are we helpless? No. We are not helpless, and our efforts are paying off. As we speak now, what you see on the screen is a typical site where crude oil is stolen and is processed in illegal refineries. And probably a selection of you one day, if you want, I will take you so that you can see it in the air, see what it really means. I hope by the time we get there, we have taken them out, because we will not stop so that you can see it. If it is tomorrow, you will still see it because they are still there. What you see here is so common around the pipeline that I can tell you in one line, just less than 200 kilometers, we had 295 illegal connections. And you'll see the data, 295. It's impossible for any oil company to continue to operate. No one produces oil so that the next person will take it. And I'm sure maybe some of us are in some kind of business. I hope not. I don't. If you produce and somebody takes all the production, the wise thing to do is to stop the production. You can't continue to produce. This is really what is happening. And what did we do? We intervened with the help of the government security agencies. By the way, Mr. President's directives were very clear. Go and sort this out, clear it, take it out, and bring back normalcy. And on the basis of that, the Chief of Defense Staff was directed to lead us in a process that will ensure that intervention comes both kinetic and non-kinetic interventions, including engagement of communities, engagement of private contractors, engagement technology. But I'm not sure it's the right platform to discuss this, but we have a control center, maybe also a select few of you can come, and I'll show you what we are doing. And some of this video that you see being passed around Saudi Aramco, well, yes, we haven't got close to this, but we have something that is resembling this, and I can show you where we do. We are not making too much noise about it. But as a result of those activities, we have so far, with the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Army, the Department of State Service, and other agencies of government in the security network, there are arrests of about 11 vessels have been arrested, 30 speedboats have been arrested, 179 wooden boats that you have seen, the type that I've just shown you, and then about 37 trucks. And as a matter of what we do now is we don't arrest them, we burn them. And that's what happens so that they won't come back to business again. And there are arrests. Currently, there are 122 arrests by different agencies of government, and they will be prosecuted. And the prosecution process is going on. And in addition to this, the activities have brought in place the destruction of 959 metal tanks. You can see the number, the colossal number there. I'm going to show you a picture of what these tanks look like. There are ovens used in boiling. 739 of them have been destroyed and identified, and some are destroyed. Not all of them have been destroyed. There are 452 dog pits, the type that I have just shown you. There are 344 reservoirs created that we have a count of it. This is not exhaustive. This is not complete. We don't have complete sight of this. And that's why the technology level is coming. And we'll surprise them that every inch of this land where our assets are will be seen at every moment in time, and actions can be taken. And also, there are 355 cooking pots. This is enormous. It simply means destruction of the environment. More than anything, yes, we do know that we have lost revenue, we have lost opportunities, we have lost money as a country, but more than anything, what this has done to the environment, in some cases, probably cannot be retrieved anymore. The level of damage that has caused. And the members of community, and I must say this, very many people believe that, the community people are involved. Not at all. It's a very, very insignificant minority that is involved in this. The communities are the victims. If you go to this community, you will see that they are in difficulty. They can't have access to clean water. They can't go fishing. They cannot go to the farm. And sometimes they are forced by these criminals to act in a manner that is illegitimate. And that's why we are working with them to rescue them from this bondage. And more than anything, to rescue the environment. And ultimately, of course, it is very correct also that our businesses will be restored. There will be resources available for the rest of the country to benefit from, every one of us to benefit from. Just to show you, one of the vessels arrested, it's not joke. This is real. If you like, I can text some of you so that I can board it and see what it means. So if you come, this level of vessels, parading and stealing, you can see the level of damage that is causing. And I must commend the Nigerian Navy for doing a very, very effective work. And we believe very strongly this moment that the majority of the marine activities are largely curtailed. I will not say it is a zero situation because it is impossible to have a zero situation, and technology will help us bring it to zero. And what you see here is the connections, and maybe one day probably I'll invite some of you to also join us. These are the connections that you are seeing. If you see a pipe of this nature, the second picture that you are seeing, that if somebody can connect this, you need at least 40 people to be there. You need cranes, you need equipment, you need generating sense for you to be able to do this. That means this is happening to the knowledge of everyone. And that is why what we are doing there has taken it off. And I'm very proud to say this moment, in collaboration with our government security agencies, our partners, that one of our lines, and I don't want to mention so that they don't go back and start on it, that we have almost recovered it fully. And we'll see production coming on those lines. Of course, what it means, for you to take down one site, and I just want you to visualize this. Typically what it means is it's a crane that can move on swam and water. That's really what it means. For you to go to every location where you have these refineries to take them down. And that's huge work. And this is what we are doing with the government security agencies, with the support of our partners and all of us and the community members. And we'll scale it up. Because there's no other way of doing it, because what you are seeing now, this is the environment. You can see the grasses have gone. And this will continue to seep into the subsurface, and ultimately it will affect drinking water. And you can do nothing else except to excavate. And the process of the cleaning up is a very cumbersome process. You have seen what is happening in the organic cleanup for very many years, how difficult it is, how almost sometimes even impossible to execute. To have a cleanup of a place of the size of Ogoni. Now imagine this is happening around the entire pipeline network in the Niger Delta region. It's a huge challenge, and we must stop it. Of course, just to show you that we don't just arrest, our government security, we're very proud of what they are doing. Once they get these refineries or the vessels or the boats, they arrest them down so that they don't come back tomorrow. It has its complications. We're very conscious of this. But it's cheaper to do this in the overall interest of the environment and our people than to continue to pull all them together. There's nothing you can do with it. You cannot pull them together. There are no production system. There's nowhere you can take it to. And the only way you can do it is to burn it up. Yes, we do know that it has consequences on the environment, but it's of lesser proportion than pulling them together and keeping them in one place. This is just for you to see more of it. But as I told you, I'm sure everybody is talking about the Saudi. Even as I was coming here, 3 or 4 people forwarded me the video from the Saudi Aramco Control Center. And I've personally been there. And the reason is people think that why can't we see what is happening? So I can also tell you that we have put up a control system. Yes, not the scale of the Saudi Aramco. We're just starting. We started it this year, April. And by now I can tell you we have some visibility around nearly everything we are, particularly on the security platforms and very many of our security operational platforms. We can see them now. We are cooperating with our partners so that every data that is available is visible to us, and that we can control them, we can intervene remotely, and ultimately that people will now start sending our own pictures to people, not the Saudi Aramco picture. So we're not harassed by this because we're clearly on a pathway that is taking us to that level. So we have visibility around our operations. We have visibility around the marine environment. We know where our assets are. We have access to data and cameras on those assets. And ultimately, once the production systems are hooked on, it's simply what Saudi Aramco is doing. It's not rocket science. It is just access to data and have access to controls. And I wouldn't think it's rocket science. We're already getting it done. And I will invite a few of you to join me to visit that center. And of course, to stop crude oil theft, you definitely need everybody to act. People speak always about theft, so everybody has to act, all of you here, and everyone that is listening to me this moment. We can help stop it. Incidences happen near our communities. Once you see this, tell us. There's a secure platform we have created. we're already getting feedback, enormous feedback, and our government security agencies are working on it. We're not just following the list, we're also following the cash. And I can confirm to you this moment that you'll see more things will happen. And I'm sure you've heard this statement made by the National Security Advisor. It's not an empty talk. It is real. We mean it. And we know that people are involved. The 122 people that I have mentioned, they have names. We know them. At the right moment, they will be disclosed. But to tell you, beyond this also, not just the small rats that we arrest at the locations, we are going after everyone else. And I can tell you that the EFCC and the NFIU, all of them are on the trail of the cash. So they will find the cash, and they're already finding the cash. And these people will be put on the table, and ultimately we'll see the relief that we require. And nobody will be covered. And of course, needless to say, that this compromise, it cuts across board. There are oil company workers, maybe even NNPC workers. There are government security workers some of them have been arrested. There are people from the oil companies. There are people who are from the communities, and also high flyer, sometimes even one of the right word, elites of the society, and government is going after them, and will get them. Thank you very much. Folashade, first of all, let me correct something. I didn't say Port Harcourt Refinery is 90% completed. I said that we'll restore them to 90% of installed capacity. That's the minimum we'll deliver. Thank you very much. And then, of course, you asked a question around borrowing for the refinery. We're borrowing from the Afrexim Bank. And we also borrowed $1 billion for this purpose. Thank you very much. I hope this answers your question. And gentlemen from VOA, why are we not able to reconstruct our pipeline, yet we are now embarking on construction of gas pipelines to other countries? If you heard me clear, what I said is that we are doing every one of them concurrently. We are not leaving any one of them. And as you are aware, gas is the next transition fuel globally, is where your money will come from. You will be stranded with your oil in another 30 years, but you won't be stranded with gas even in 50 years to come. And that's why we're building those infrastructure to make sure that Nigerians of tomorrow will be able to benefit from these resources today, while we're also constructing our pipeline. As I mentioned, we're doing a build, operate, and transfer program for the pipeline networks, and we're replacing them. So we have not abandoned them. Then the gentleman from Reuters, he said delay in asset sale will hinder investment in the oil and gas sector. By the way, divestment is the right of any partner. As a matter of fact, the Petroleum Industry Act allows the government even to divest its interest in the joint ventures today. So anyone can divest interest in any business. But divestment always has rules, has processes. We are now NNPC Limited. We're a commercial company. We will do everything possible to protect our commercial interests, and that will have nothing to do with stifling investment in the industry, because we already have structure and processes that are in place to ensure that these assets continue to produce. So nothing has stopped. Change of ownership doesn't stop business. And then, of course, the gentleman from Silverbat, you asked why haven't we named the people who are involved in this? I told you there are 122 arrests. I'm sure you are also very obvious that it is not NNPC that will make announcement of criminals and culprits. But I know that names exist. They will be named, but definitely the most important thing to do is to prosecute them and show to the world that it's wrong to do this, and that if you do, the law will catch up with them. But the most important thing for us to follow through is to make sure that there is prosecution, and once they are prosecuted, they will be lined up, and everybody will see them, no matter who they are. Let me answer the issue around stoppage of importation of petroleum product. Even if all our 4 refineries in 3 locations, by the way, I'm sure you're aware that in Port Harcourt you have 2 refineries, are operating at 90% of installed capacity, they will only be able to raise 18 million liters of petroleum motor spirit, PMS, or petrol. That means that even if all of them are working today, you will still have a net deficit of PMS to import into this country. This is what it means. Because our population has grown, demand has grown, the middle class has grown. I'm sure everybody here owns 1 or 2 cars, and so on and so forth. And as such that the volume of petroleum motors required in this country has grown almost exponentially, because there is clearly an exponential growth in our ability our needs for petroleum motor spirit. So even if they all come back, you're not going to stop importation of petroleum products. But happily also, NNPC owns 20% equity in the Dangote Refinery. And not only that, and we're very proud of this, we are not only owning 20% equity, we have the first right of refusal to supply crude oil into that plant. But we saw this energy transition challenge coming. We knew that time will come when you will look for people who will buy your crude oil you will not find. And that means that we have locked down ability to sell crude oil for 300,000 barrels minimum by right for the next 20 years. And also, by right also, we have access to 20% of the production from that plant. That means that whatever it does, we have a right to take 20% of that production as part of our equity. And this refinery, if it does come up, and it will come up because we are on the board of that company now, we know what is happening now, that it will come on stream by the mid of next year. Projection is first quarter, but we think that it can come up latest by the end of mid of next year. If it does, this refinery alone, because it has 650,000 per barrel capacity and a different technology, which means that it can crack the crude in a manner that you can have more gasoline than a typical refinery. That means that that refinery has ability to produce up to 50 million liters of PMS. So the combination of that and our own ability to bring back our refinery will completely eliminate any importation of petroleum product into this country next year. You will not see any importation into this country next year. This is very practical. This is possible. As a matter of fact, when we are done with our own refineries and the Dangote refinery, very many other small initiatives that we are doing, small, modular, condensate refineries that we are building, if that happens, and we are very optimistic it will happen, you will see that this country will now be a net exporter. As a matter of fact, it will be a hub of export of petroleum product, not just to the West African sub-region, but to the rest of the world. This will happen. The flow of supply will change. By middle of next year, it will change. So you will have no need for importation of petroleum product into this country by middle. I don't know this. I think this combination answers all your questions. Thank you very much. Then back to TVC Femi. It's how soon will shares be listed? I hope you are not going to borrow money today to buy shares. But for you to list shares, you must be IPO ready. IPO ready means that you must have system and processes, you must have governance, you must have assets, you must have the correct and indisputable valuation that the potential buyers will see, the stock exchange will demand for all this, and then ultimately you can now list your shares. And that is why I said earlier when I was speaking, that we will be IPO ready by the middle of next year. It means that we'll have system, processes, policies, governance, assets that we can show, valuation that are reliable, that people can test, as we already have today, and also the right kind of governance structure, and also a risk management system. That are basic requirements of IPOs, and all this will be ready by the middle of next year, and at the choice of its shareholders, that it can be listed at any time, because the law section 54 of the PI is clearly said that you can dilute the interest of this company by its shareholder. The shareholders are the 200 million Nigerians, represented in today's context by the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and the Ministry of Finance. Very understandable, and that ties to the question from the lady from Bloomberg, I think. Yes, she was asking. Somebody asked why the board. It's Leon, Dr. Leon. Sorry, I remember. Yeah, Dr. Leon asked the question: why would the board be appointed by government? board of companies are always appointed by shareholders. Shareholders are always represented. This is typical. If anyone here doesn't own a company, just go and try to incorporate a company. They will tell you that you must have shareholders. Those shareholders will appoint the board of those companies. In today's context, the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated and Ministry of is holding in trust for the Federation, but they cannot do anything except the shareholders of record agree, which is the 200 million Nigerians, and that is why the PIA provided for a leverage of the National Economic Council to have a say in this process. And therefore, the board of the companies by law is required that Mr. President appoints the board of these companies on behalf of all of us. That whenever you dilute interest, even if it is 10% interest in these companies, that right for government to appoint vanishes automatically. It now becomes a matter for the shareholders, which includes private owners of this company will do. So this will come, Dr. Leon. Not today's content, we are transiting, but as soon as you hear we are ready for IPO, it's all over also. The board will be appointed by the shareholders, which will include private equity holders. And let me just follow up to answer your question around remittances to FARC in the historical NNPC. To the best of our knowledge, we have reconciled our position with FARC. We have no liabilities that we are carrying forward to this new company. And as a matter of fact, and it's very popular now, NNPC is not remitting any money to the Federation account. That is very correct. But what is also never mentioned is that we are providing petroleum metal spirit to this country as a matter of a commercial relationship between us and this federation, all of us, that we are paying market price for petroleum metal spirit, as we all know. We all know, if some of you buy EJO, you will know that EJO price is not always far from PMS price, and you know what the price of PMS is. So whenever you do this, and you sell at some market price, and once there is no direct payments to any company, then the only way we can recover that cost is for us to hold back our fiscal obligations, which is taxes and royalties, so that we can use it to breach that payment that we are doing on behalf of all of us, and as a matter of responsibility, as a matter of law, if you may know. The Appropriation Act clearly provided for subsidy on PMS. Appropriation Act is the act of the National Assembly. That means it represents all of us, and we're merely executing the provisions of the law, and there's no way you can do both of them. You cannot pay your fiscal responsibilities and also find money and pay for the PMS subsidies that we are all carrying on behalf of all of us. So it's very understandable. As a matter of fact, the level of subsidy that we are seeing because of the price differential versus the revenue that we are able to generate, which is associated with some of the crude oil theft that I have mentioned to you, is no longer practical for our fiscal responsibility to even cover those costs. But we're managing it. We are here also by law. We are required to ensure energy security for our country. We'll do everything possible, and we have no fears around this, and we'll continue to serve this country as a company. And the National Reserve Company, every country in the world has a National Reserve Company, every country, in a different manner. And there are very many ways of doing this. One is to require petroleum product marketing companies to maintain minimum reserve in their depots on behalf of the state. Of course, that means there's a holding cost, and government will be ready to pay for that. The second way is government to directly procure those products and keep them somewhere. And that is why you have the network of the pipelines that we have and the depots that we have. The real intention is first to bring product close to its consumers, and secondly, to maintain them as national reserve locations. So we'll bring back the pipelines so that these depots will serve that purpose. We have built another depot, a reserve facility in Atlas Cove. It's due for commissioning. We have completed it. And the end result is that you will now have a network of pipelines and depots that will now manage the national reserve on behalf of all of us. It's typically a government responsibility. It can be outsourced to private companies. It can also be done by an agency of government. In some countries, it is done by the military. The military maintains the national strategic reserve of petroleum product. This is not the situation we are dealing with currently. We are establishing the National Reserve Company, which will manage on behalf of the state, and will defer to any decision the state will make. In the interim, there's no contrary view around how else we can do it. And Hassan, you asked a question around why you paying salary on a refinery that is not working. This question has been raised severally in very many fora. In the National Assembly, you have two options. When you have a refinery that is not working, typically what you do is called mothballing. Is that you pull them down, bring them into crates, and ask everybody to go. And then you have security men to watch it. Otherwise, the second option you have is to keep them as we are doing. You continue to mothball them. That means that you lubricate the parts that you must lubricate. You test run some of the parts that you have to continue to run. Otherwise, the day you want it, it won't work. So it's the second option we are doing, that we have to keep it. We are not ready to bring them down into pieces. Typically, when you bring them down into crates, you never want to bring them back. But we know that we will bring them back. We know that we're working on them. And that means that you are keeping personnel to continue to do those activities. And more than anything, that the other implication is that you sack everybody that is there so that you can stop the salaries bill. And this also is a matter that has gone to the National Assembly, and the informed position that we have, even by the clear wisdom of the National Assembly, that we can't do this at this point in time. And that's why we're paying the salary. You have to keep it. But what we also did is that we have minimized that. We have moved around many of the staff to locations where they will be put into work, and we'll continue to do this as we know that ultimately the refineries will now be run on an O&M basis. So we'll have no need for this cost as we go forward. It will continue to diminish. There are retirements that are happening as a result of age and very many other considerations, and these numbers are coming down by virtue of statutory requirements that this should happen. I think I've answered all the questions of the payment.
Yes. Before, I'll take another 4. Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you very much. Doctors, around what are we doing have we put up any policies to protect the environment? There's no shortage of policies. First of all, we're a business. We're also regulated. There are several institutions of government, NOSDRA, Ministry of Environment, and so many other interventions. The authority, which is responsible for the downstream, and also the commission responsible for the upstream operations. There are several policies and regulations around protection of the environment. And we'll comply with all of them. But what we can't manage is when vandals come, because that is no longer operations now, it is acts of vandal. So you react to what they do. That means it's contentment and handling of what others have done, which is why there are several steps all companies do, including our company, to make sure that whenever such happen, remediation takes place, we stop the leakage, we recover all the crude that is possible to be recovered, and we'll continue to work to make sure that we restore the refinery. As I've said earlier, the scale of what we are seeing here, no matter what you do, the reaction time for the scale of what we are seeing is the capacity is a key issue, and we'll continue to work on it. Yes, there are policies to do this. And of course, you also asked a question, I think there's a question around alternative to the burning. So what else can we do other than burning this crude oil? What you can collect them in a location, and then now take them to a refinery or take them to another vessel. Very, very complicated. If you see the statistics I gave you, you have 450 boats, all those canoes and vessels. Just imagine how you can manage this. The alternative, the solution is stop the leakage. Stop the tape, and then they'll vanish, so that you don't have to do anything. This is really the reality that we're dealing with. Then, Tony, a question around excess crude and how does the realities of the NNPC affect the excess crude account? The excess crude account, as you may be aware, is the difference between the budgeted sum and then the available resources, which sometimes, because of price changes, it can come beyond this. And it's flown into the excess crude account by the Federal Ministry of Finance always. So it is not an NNPC activity. Our obligation is to deliver those resources to the Federation account, and they will do this. What is also different by law now, which connects to the question asked around the PIA, is that the law provides that whenever there is a royalty on price, which means that there's excess value that is delivered, it goes into the sovereign wealth fund. And also the sovereign wealth fund, by law also, it can be funded either by the excess crude oil account or by any means that the National Economic Council decides to fund. So there's no limitation to how the sovereign wealth fund can be funded. But there's clear provision on the PIA that says that certain amount of money must go directly to the sovereign wealth fund. That was not there, was not there before. And Channels, I am very, very convinced that the Chief of Naval Staff is misquoted. He could not have said that NNPC is conniving to steal from the terminal. I'm very, very doubtful, and I have very fruitful and constant engagement with the Chief of Naval Staff. The vessel in question was the vessel that is arrested at Equatorial Guinea. If you recall, the vessel came too early. It should not have been here. Outside is Lakan. Vessels can come and stay in your international waters until you call them to come in. This is typical practice. It is not only this vessel that does this. It's a very, very typical process. But once vessels move into your territorial waters, then they become suspect. As at that point in time, we have said it clearly that that vessel did not have clearance. I wrote to the Chief of Naval Staff that this vessel did not have clearance, but that we knew that it is coming, but it did not have clearance. And it is also confirmed, and I'm sure you have seen this, that this vessel did not load crude oil from the Akpo terminal. This is very, very correct, but I can confirm, hold on, yes, listen. Listen, I'm not defending the vessel. Let me tell you why vessel movement. I think it's important for all of us to also learn how vessel nominations take place. 2 weeks before you are loading, you are supposed to tell your seller, in this case, NNPC or any of our partners, that in this case, this vessel was actually not coming to load NNPC's oil, it's loading our partner oil. So you are supposed to declare that your vessel has been nominated. And once you nominate that vessel, NNPC will send that vessel to the terminal operator, because not every vessel can go to every terminal because of safety issues. So the vessel terminal operator must confirm to you that this vessel can come to the terminal before it can come. So typically companies nominate 2 to 3 vessels for each operation. Sometimes only one, because some vessels have history, they have gone to that terminal that they know that the operator will not refuse to accept this. So companies must nominate vessels ahead of their coming. And then the process happens. We write to the terminal, if it is our nomination, we write to the terminal operator. Once the terminal operator is okay, they will inform us. Then we will inform the regulatory authorities. In this case, the Commission, which is the regulatory authority, and the Nigerian Navy, that this vessel is known to us, it's committing a legitimate business, offer it clearance for it to go to VAT at any terminal. The vessel in question has not passed through this process before it came into our territorial waters. And the claim they made, which was debunked by the Navy and which we agree, was that they are afraid of a pirate attack. And we also know that the pirate attacks have minimized recently in our country, and those incidents are very, 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 very minimal. I'm not sure NNPC has ever or will ever facilitate stealing of crude oil. And I've said it over and over again that the process of stealing of crude oil is beyond any one individual today. It's end to end. From the producing company, I've said it over and over, from the producing companies, from NNPC personnel, from security men, from members of community, every cadre of people that you can, from the elites in the community, in the society, and I'm going to address that, everybody has some involvement. Are they doing it on behalf of the institutions? Absolutely not. There are criminals everywhere, and there are also good people everywhere. And I believe that majority of my workers are good people. But I'm not saying that there are no bad people in NNPC. They may be there, and they will be the part of the people that I told you will deal with them. Government will deal with them, will take them out. This is the point that I was trying to make. And this connects to the question around some big men. I think somebody asked a question around some big men that are doing and we are doing nothing about it. Please, if you know, tell us now. I can tell you they will not sleep in their houses today. I can tell you this, no one is exempt. If it is me, say it, I will not sleep in my house today. So no one is exempt. Everyone will be followed. That is why I said that the EFCC is following the cash. People who go and build houses without income. People who build skyscrapers without any legitimate business. People who buy cars that they know that not everybody knows that they can afford. Lifestyle changes that you can't explain. All these things are being followed, and we know that the law will catch up with all these people, and they will be disclosed, and they will be prosecuted. Then Jet A1 and diesel supply. What did you say? Okay, yes, I'm sure you are referring to the question you asked the Chief of Naval Staff, where he made statements around the volume of crude oil. Let us distinguish issues. When you say you are losing 700,000 barrels per day of crude oil, we mean it. It is opportunity lost. There is no company that will produce oil and then you lose 80% of that and continue to produce the oil. So we deliberately shut down the pipelines whenever we see these infractions getting to a limit that we cannot control, that are not possible to be managed. So that means as we speak today, we know for sure there is at least 700 lock-ins that we could have produced that we can't do because we cannot guarantee the safety of the pipeline. Of course, there are some technical issues. Needless to say that not 100% of that is due to theft. There are technical issues. We are responding to the technical issue, but majority of this is associated with reasons around crude oil theft. Now, when you say how much of it is stolen, and I've seen the statistics, it is impossible to have barges sailing 200,000 barrels per day. I agree with the Chief of Naval Staff. You need thousands of barges to do this. But don't forget also that we have seen lines connected that have shown you the size of the pipeline itself running for 3 to 4 kilometers. It means that it goes to, can you go back? It goes to some of those barges loaded directly. Can you go back? I'll show you the vessel. Go back. No, the vessel. So this vessel, as you can see, when you lay pipeline and hoses, you can fill them and go. So this is not a barge. So when this happens, and which I also accepted, that enormous work has been done by the Navy, and they have contained the marine activity, but this is reality. These were arrested by the Navy carrying crude oil. So if you can do this, we believe very strongly that up to 200,000 barrels of oil is stolen, but not in barges. And of course, this is being contained. I think this is the point that I'm trying to. There's no distinction between what the Chief of Naval Staff has said and what I'm saying now, because it is true that you cannot do it with barges. But when you do at vessels of this nature, which is arrested by the Navy, and also when you have 295 or so cooking pots, even if they are taking 500 barrels per day, in each of these locations, you can see the scale of losses. So whether they are able to process and put it in the market is a different matter, but it's stolen. Thank you very much.
The President has an event. We're running for time. So, CEO, please, can we need to end this.
Yes.
Sorry. When he's exiting, you can engage with him.
Please, let's be orderly. Please, let's be orderly.
The President has an event for 12.
Unfortunately, I don't have to give you the answer that you want. Yes, there's a question around why subsidy when the PIA said petroleum will be priced at commercial. Yes, the PIA is very clear that PMS or petroleum product will be priced at the market. But the PIA did not exclude any intervention of government. Government can decide to give any form of relief to its citizen. And that is why the the Appropriation Act 2022 clearly provided for this, and we are simply implementing this. So it's not incomplete with the PIA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we done?
I'm done.
Okay. Jet A1 and this.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm not avoiding.
And then Tompolo.
Sorry, I'm not avoiding. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry.
Part of the security intervention that we are doing is end-to-end. You must involve community members. You must involve government security agencies. You must deploy technology. And you must employ other soft means of ensuring that you are able to contain end-to-end, including the engagement of community members. What we did is to do three things. First, to ensure the government security agencies play their part. We have our Navy, we have the Army, we have the Department of Security Service. They are doing an excellent job of containing this. But as you do this, sustenance is everything. And therefore, we also decided that we need private contractors to man the right of way and also operate outside the right of way, so that they can also join us to manage members of the community. And we don't have access to that. And therefore, we put up a framework where contractors were selected through a tender process, or people who can do it. Not everyone can do it. And Tompolo is just mentioned. We are dealing with corporate entities. He may have interest in the company, but we're not dealing with Tompolo. But we know that he has interest in that company. We know that we're engaging all other individuals who will be of help to us in this situation. This has happened severally over time, and the end result was that it was contained under a process like this, and we believe that we have taken the right decision. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm sure you are aware that Jet A1 and diesel are all deregulated products, including diesel. Diesel and Jet A1, we all know they are deregulated product. It's delivered into the market at its market cost. The only way you can have cheaper Jet A1 is to put subsidy on it or diesel. And there's no framework for subsidy on Jet A1 and diesel. All NNPC is doing is to balance the market. We intervene by bringing in products so that because we have access to cheaper product in the market, and we dampen the pricing so that consumers are not exploited by marketers unnecessarily or unduly. So this is what we are doing, and clearly it's just a reflection of the market. Thank you very much.